As Shabbat Shalom. On Shabbat, I always like to change it up, open up the Bible, kind of compare what is going on in the calendar with what's going on in the news. It's almost Purim. What is the story of Purim? It means lots. Purim means lots. But it's the story of Esther, right? Book of Esther. It's a mysterious book. The name of God isn't mentioned, but we see God's hand through it all. Remember King Ahasuerus? Is it him and Esther, the dad and mom of Cyrus the Great? I don't know. Maybe you can check that for me. But Xerxes won, and so he holds this lavish feast. He's like, Queen Vashti, get in here. She says, I don't want to come, and she gets removed, banished, and then the king seeks a new queen. He holds the beauty pageant, and then there's this Jewish girl, an orphaned Jewish girl, raised by her cousin Mordecai, and suddenly she's picked for her beauty and her grace. She doesn't share that she's Jewish, little mystery there. Mordecai, you know the story. Mordecai, meanwhile, hears a plot of, Bigthan and Teresh, and they're talking about assassinating the king, and he tells Esther, saves the king's life, and the conspirators are executed, and it's recorded in the chronicles of the king, really important. But then there's this spirit that wants to destroy all of Israel, this Haman, and you know the story, but he's just angry that Mordecai won't bow, and he's like, I'm going to make these gallows for him. You know this? And then he goes and he says, he casts Purim or lots. What day? He taps into a spiritual realm here. What day to enact his revenge to kill all the Jews? And it's just diabolical. It's almost like Hamas, really. It's diabolical. And so suddenly then Esther says, Mordecai says, hey, for such a time as this, you've been brought to this place. If you don't stand up for Israel, God will rescue Israel from another source, but you will perish. Harsh words from Mordecai. But she's like, okay. And then they go fast, and they fast and pray. And it's the Iranians, the Persian girls and her, and they're in their beauty spa or whatever, but they're fasting and praying. And then she goes and invites the king and Haman to 2 banquets. On the second banquet, she finally says, listen, someone's trying to kill us all, and it's this dude Haman. And then a king orders Haman to be executed at the very gallows that he set for Mordecai. And then the Jewish people defend themselves. They're able to defend themselves. Yes, and then they fight, and then it's a new decree where on the 13th of Adar, coming up soon, I hope you'll join us online for a wonderful time, by the way, here. Tell all your friends. I believe it's the 22nd at 6 o'clock Israel time. But tell all your friends. Or is it the 23rd? Anyway, it's Purim. And suddenly you see that there's this huge victory, great rejoicing. And so it's just amazing how God's hand is working. And remember don't forget about the part where the king can't sleep, and he wakes up and he's like, read me some of the chronicles. And then it's suddenly like, this guy saved your life, Mordecai saved your life, and Haman had to go, was humbled. And Haman because this whole thing about bowing down, there's so much of this having to bow down to the enemy. And we say, no, we're not going to bow down to the bad guys. And but I want to juxtaposition this with Ezra and Nehemiah also coming out of captivity and coming to rebuild Jerusalem, right? And you see that in the book of Ezra. And so he's a cupbearer. And you see how he also is a Jewish person who had the ear of the ruler. He was in Nehemiah was a cupbearer, and he was able to have that in, and he's talking about, I want to rebuild. I'm sad because I want to rebuild Jerusalem. I want to help with the Aliyah. And there's these enemies, Tobias and Sanballat, Tovia and Sanballat, enemies. And so you have this restoration that happens. And sure, they try to attack, but read Ezra 1 through 10, and you're going to see, especially Ezra 7, he comes into Jerusalem, and suddenly you have, and Nehemiah 1 through 6, and you see these leaders arise that are for Israel. I see myself like Nehemiah, just so you know, and I see that God wants me to be part of the restoration of Israel. And I see how God can use all of us, whether you're like Esther, she was just a slave in a foreign country. Whether you're like Nehemiah, he was just a slave in a foreign country. But you see how these enemies like Haman, like Sanballat, like Tobias, however, and you see how God gives total victory because it's his providence, it's his desire that his nation be restored. He's highlighting it because one day the Messiah will reign from here in Israel, and his plan and purpose will come true, that in this nation all the families of the earth will be blessed and his glory will return. Which one of you want to be part of this? Which one do you think you're not good enough? Which one do you feel that you don't have all the things that you need? You need to go do something else and then serve God. God wants to use you right now to stand up exactly where you are. Hey, why don't you start by sharing this video to 5 groups? Come on, let's do something together to help Israel in this time of need and see real peace be restored.